Hi everyone, it is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, wishing you a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Hope you're well and I hope you are safe. Thank you for joining me. We are celebrating New Zealand Week, Aotearoa New Zealand Week. All week here in my kitchen we're doing lots and lots of healthy cooking, including today's very cool, very classic recipe which is a Louise slice. So basically it's a shortbread base. So I'm teaching you guys how to make a wonderful shortbread base, and then we're topping that with a type of jam, and then all of that gets topped with the most wonderful coconut meringue. Very classic. Like I said, it's a Kiwi icon. But one of the great things about the recipe that I'm teaching you guys is there is no sugar. So there is no refined sugar in this recipe whatsoever. There is no gluten, and I'm also giving you a dairy-free option as well. So lots of wonderful things that are inside of it and lots of nasty things that aren't inside of it, which is very, very cool. So let's get into the recipe. There's a couple of different steps that we have to go through, but they're not difficult steps, I have to tell you. They are pretty easy. So the first thing we're going to do, when you come on down to my bench, we're going to make the shortbread crust first. So come on down here and let's go. So shortbread crust is easy. This is going to be used later on. You don't need a machine to make the crust. So all you need to do to make the crust is, the first thing is I'm going to get out my my little machine here. If you haven't seen this before, this is my spice or coffee grinder, and I actually use it to make like a powdered zero as sugar. So as you guys all know, our zero as sugar, which is our pure erythritol, no calories, won't affect your glycemic index, won't raise your blood glucose, so it's really, really good. And also it's got zero laxative effect as well, no gastrointestinal upsets. I need to create almost like a powder form, so like icing sugar or powdered sugar, and the best way to do that is honestly by using this little gadget here. So into that, I'm going to weigh the erythritol straight into it. So putting it onto the scales, and I need 75 grams of our zero as sugar, our pure erythritol, which is about 2.5 ounces. So 75 grams goes in there. Lovely. And then it's a matter of just giving this a very, very quick little grind. Literally seconds. It is that quick. It is literally seconds. And you can even see the powder coming off it. I've got almost what you would imagine is icing sugar, but of course, there ain't no sugar here. This is sugar-free. All right, so that just gets dumped into our bowl. Put you away for later. The next ingredient, now by the way, if you don't have one of those little spice grinders, you can do this powdered version of our erythritol. All you need to do is just put it into your little mini food processor and give it a good, bit of a blend until you get it into powder form. It'll probably take you a little bit longer, but you can still definitely get that powder. So next ingredient in our base is I'm using almond flour. You could use almond meal, but you could also use like cashew nut flour if you didn't want to use almond, or actually you could use any nut flour or seed of your choosing. And we're going to be putting into our bowl, along with our powdered zero sugar, we're putting 200 grams, which is 7 ounces of either almond flour, almond meal. Like I said, you could also use any nut or seed flour that you want to use. It's completely up to you. All right, so that goes in there. Let's add a pinch of mineral salt as well, goes in there. And just give it a bit of a stir. Give it a bit of a stir together. And just blending the erythritol in through the almonds. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the liquid portion of this wonderful crust that we've just made. So the liquid portion, or the wet portion, I have in here 2 egg yolks, so just 2 large egg yolks. Behind me on the stove, I have melted together, or just gently melted, so no heat. This is not hot. We can see it's not hot. Look at that. It's just melted. And I have in my little pot here, I actually have some ghee, which is our clarified butter. You can also use coconut oil if you want to do a dairy-free option here. But here's the very cool thing, and by the way, there's 90 grams of either coconut oil or ghee goes into our yolks, And the very cool thing about ghee is that ghee, when ghee is produced, and how they make it is they very, very slowly heat normal butter, or grass-fed butter is the ideal one. They heat it really, really slowly. And what happens when they heat it slowly is the milk solids separate from the butter fat. And then they basically discard the butter fat, and you're just left with, discard the milk solids, apologies, and you're left with the butter fat. Well, in that milk solid is the part of the dairy that people find really hard to digest, which can be the lactose. That is thrown away with the milk fat, with the milk solids, so you're left with a lactose-free butter. So if you do suffer from lactose intolerance, you might want to start looking at getting into the old ghee, because the lactose is gone when they get rid of the milk solids. So once those are in there, I am just going to add a little bit of vanilla, pure vanilla extract. 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract goes in there into our wet. Whoa, she needs some more. She's nearly out. Give that a bit of a mix, and then just make a well in the middle of your dry ingredients. You're going to put all that wonderful yolk and all that lovely ghee is going to go into there, and you just need to give it a bit of a stir, and you're just bringing this dough together. And this is kind of as hard as this recipe gets, which is cool, right? You like things to be nice and easy. This is one of those ones that's fairly easy. So the type of dough, it's not a very wet dough, but at the same time you don't want it to be crumbly. So it will hold together really, really well, regardless of whether you use coconut oil or whether you use ghee. It holds together really well. If you don't have ghee, yes, you can use grass-fed butter as well. You can sort of see that lovely consistency here, there that we have from our dough. And we're going to take ourselves up. Here is it. I have a little slice tin here that I've lined with some baking paper. Obviously, we don't want it to stick. And then our dough goes into our slice tin, and either using clean hands, or I like to use this little spatula, you just want to press the dough into the slice tin. Now the size of the slice tin, I normally use a square one. I find it works perfectly, and my square one's about 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters. In fact, it's more of a brownie tin than a slice tin, but I just like it in the square. But of course you can use just your normal size. You can sort of see the size of that slice tin. Apologies, I actually don't know what the length of it is. I'm going to say 20 centimeters by, I don't know, 15 or something like that. But I do like my brownie tin because it comes out as a nice square, and all you're doing is you're just compacting the dough in, making sure it's nice and even. And this dough, this is quite a big recipe. You're going to get sort of 16, 20, maybe even 24 slices out of this. So this is a decent one. And just push everything up to the edges, nice and flat, nice and even. This is when the spatula can come in handy too. You can get around the edges and kind of really make sure that you've got a nice, flat, even dough. Now, because I'm using ghee, or using, you can use butter, of course I've got a lovely yellow kind of a shortbread crust. If you're using coconut oil, it won't quite be the same color, but will still work absolutely fine. So once you've squished everything down to the edges, you're happy that it's nice and flat. Now you just want to pop this into the oven. I have my oven set on 170 degrees Celsius, which is 340 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to pop that inside just like that, and that's going to go in there for 12 minutes. Because you're just wanting to start to sort of 3/4 of the way cook it through. So that goes in the oven for 12 minutes. And after 12 minutes, here's that square brownie tin I was talking about that I love so much. After 12 minutes, you have a light color on the top, which is great. And this is around about sort of 3/4 of the way cooked. Now, once it comes out of the oven, you just want to allow it to cool down, and you can sort of leave it on your bench to cool for about 20 minutes, but if you're in a bit of a hurry, just pop it in the freezer for 10 minutes as well, just to get it cool enough that we can do the next step. So before we move on to the jam filling, so it goes shortbread, and then it goes jam, and then it goes the meringue. Let's do the meringue first, because this is probably, I wouldn't say it's involved, it's pretty easy, but there's just a few different ingredients. The jam's pretty simple. So you want to take up, I have here 3 egg whites, large egg whites, and make sure those egg whites are at room temperature. So if your eggs have been in the fridge, bring them out of the fridge, separate them, and just leave them to come up to room temperature. I think I've had these in this bowl for around about 40 minutes because my eggs were in the fridge. So make sure your eggs are at room temperature because you want the meringue to kind of lift up. So those go straight into your mixer, or you can obviously use a handheld mixer with a whisk. Put it on. And what we're looking for is stiff peaks, by the way. Okay, there. Next ingredients. Before I do that, in this little bowl here, so these are all the ingredients that go into our egg whites to make the meringue. So in this little bowl here, I have some more powdered zero ash sugar, the erythritol. I have 50 grams of powdered erythritol. To that, I'm also going to be adding in, might just put this on low, it can still do its thing. To that, I'm going to be adding in some of our inulin. And by the way, inulin is back in stock. I have just been told we have managed to secure some more inulin from our supplier, which is very exciting. So if you are short on inulin, I would suggest you go to our store and you purchase the inulin, because we only have some limited stock, but it is still available, or it is currently available in the store. So with inulin, we're going to be putting in 40 grams into the sugar, or the erythritol. That goes in, 40 grams. So now we've added a prebiotic to it, which is wonderful. We are also going to be adding in a 1/4 of a teaspoon of xanthan gum. It's going in there as well, just like that. And we're also putting in 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. That's going to help the egg whites to stay nice and stiff. So that's the sort of the ingredients that are going to go into here. I'm going to turn this on now, so not much talking for a bit. Give it a bit of a stir through, just give it a mix through all the dry ingredients. You can see why you want to do this with a machine, right? What we're looking for, by the way, first step here with our meringue, is we're looking for it to form soft peaks. Yep. So this is kind of what is known as the soft peak stage. So you can sort of see that we've got some a lot of bubbles and froth has been formed, and the egg white is kind of almost doubled in size. Which is great. So now what we can begin to do is very, very slowly, you're going to watch me, I'm going to be incorporating the dry ingredients into the meringue to make sure we get a really, really glossy meringue. One at a time. It's like a little bit of a miracle the way it comes together. We can see, in our bowl here that our meringue has gotten really nice and glossy. So look at that already. And like I said, you can see why you want to do this with a stand mixer, because it does all the hard work for you. And look at that. That is what you're after, that sort of consistency. So after a couple of minutes, you're going to get this amazing consistency from your meringue. Doesn't take long to do when you've got one of these lovely machines to work for you. We're just going to finish this off with just a few little flavors just to give it a bit of a balance. And that is just a half teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. Going to go in there as well, which may seem really odd, but apple cider vinegar is going to help to give this flavor and color. And if I have any left in my little container, I'm going to be putting in half a teaspoon of vanilla. Whoa, just enough there. Give it a quick mix through. Oh, that's kind of it. All right, happy with that. Scraping down, you can see how nice and thick this is as well, which is helped along with that xanthan gum that we put in there. Whoa, looking good. I'm gonna take that off. Don't want to waste any. Don't want to waste it. There we go, perfect. All right, so we're going to move on to doing the rest of this by hand, and by the rest of it, there's not much more that we need to do, which is very exciting. But you can look at that. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? So we're going to add the coconut portion now to the meringue. So I have 40 grams, which is about 1.4 ounces, just under 1.5 ounces of coconut threads, or coconut, what else it's called, shredded coconut. So they're quite long threads. This is better than the desiccated stuff for this particular recipe. So you want to add into the meringue itself, you want to put about half of that 40 grams, about 20 grams to start off with, and then just fold it through the meringue, and the rest we're going to stick on top before it gets popped back in the oven. So just like that. And now it's time to fill. This is the easy part, and this is the cool part, because you basically get to decide what sort of jam you're going to put onto it. Now, traditionally, they use raspberry jam, and this is my raspberry lipstick jam, so obviously no sugar in there. And the recipe for this, let me try and remember which ebook it's in. Ooh, one that I produced recently. Oh, if you've got the Ice Creamery plate, the recipe for this jam is in that ebook that comes with the plate. But the recipe is also available on Healthy Treats 2 ebook as well. So you can put, obviously a sugar-free jam is going to go into the base here. But here's another nice option that you might want to think of, and one that we're going to be doing today. In this little container here, I actually have rhubarb, stewed rhubarb, as you can see. And I thought, wouldn't that be nice? Instead of having the traditional raspberry jam down, which is what we do for a Louise slice, I'm actually going to be using the stewed rhubarb. The stewed rhubarb recipe is definitely in the Ice Creamery ebook. If you have that, I know it's in there, because the reason I made this rhubarb was to go through ice cream, which is delicious. But as you can see, it is so wonderful. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to put it onto the base of our lovely shortbread. So you need, depending on what jam or what stewed fruit you decide to use, you need about 150 grams, which is 5.2 ounces. But keep an eye on it. Depending on the type of jam, you may need a little bit more. It's up to you. The last time I did this, I put 200 grams, and it was way too much. It was leaking out of the sides. So you want to work at about 150 grams of a jam or a stewed fruit. And when I'm thinking stewed fruit, for the Kiwis, I know it's feijoa season, that would be amazing. If you were to do a Louise slice with feijoa, stewed feijoa, that would be so delicious. But of course, if you don't have rhubarb or feijoas, or even like a kiwi fruit, a stewed kiwi fruit would be really nice. Of course, then you go back and it is delicious with the raspberry lipstick jam. It is amazing with that jam. And what we have, of course, done is we've created something that is completely sugar-free. So that's what it looks like when it comes to the base. Make sure you spread it out towards the edges and make it as nice and even as possible, because you want a big bite of the stewed fruit or the jam or whatever it is. You want to get a nice big bite every single time you take a bite of that wonderful Louise slice. And the last thing that we're going to do, we're going to think about, is putting on our meringue. So it's a good idea to kind of dollop it on to begin with, and then we'll spread it out. And I quite like, you could use 2 eggs and make a smaller meringue, but I actually quite like the Louise slice to have lots of meringue, because one of the great things about this particular meringue recipe, because there is no sugar in it, it doesn't go hard, it goes lovely and chewy, which is just ideal for a Louise slice. You want chewy meringue, which is great. Right. Then back to our little spatula and just kind of smooth it out a little bit. It's okay, you know, if it's uneven, because that's kind of the beauty of the meringue, is it's got little peaks and troughs. But like when you're making a pavlova, you know, you can have a little bit of fun with this bit, because the more kind of, I suppose, peaks that you have in it, when it cooks, the better it looks, because you get these little, you know, darker, more toasted golden bits over the meringue when you have a little bit of fun with it. So push it once again right to the edges. You can see the importance of the baking paper now, because you don't want things to stick. Right to the edges. And then I'm just going to take that last bit of coconut and we're going to put that on there. Another nice little thing that you could think of doing, especially because it is summer in Australia and New Zealand, make this with a wonderful stewed peaches. That would be so good. I mean, I know the classic Louise slice is done with raspberry jam, but hey, play around with it, especially if you've got Feijoas in abundance, or you know, some type of fruit that you want to use up. There's nothing that you can't do when it comes to that base layer, provided you've got the coconut meringue, you've got the shortbread crust, you're good to go. All right, so now over to the oven we go again. This time I have my oven turned down to 160 degrees, which is just under 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to pop that in there between 15 to 20 minutes. The reason why I say between 15 to 20, if your meringue is quite thick because you're using, you know, a square one like I am, it'll probably take about 20 minutes to cook through. If you are making a slice in the rectangular one, you're probably going to have a thinner meringue, and it's going to take about 15 minutes. So keep an eye on it, but 15 to 20 minutes at 160 degrees Celsius, which is 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And are you ready? Are you ready? Ta-da! There you go. Isn't she gorgeous? This is the classic Kiwi Louise slice. As you can see, I've done this one. This one was done with that jam, the raspberry lipstick jam, and I cannot wait, because now you know what it kind of means. Come up here. Oh, I can get you up here. You know what it means is that now that I have this one made, that one's about to go into the oven, and I'm very much looking forward to the rhubarb Louise slice as well. Now a quick little, I suppose, a little history when it comes to the Louise slice. When I was growing up, I actually thought Louise slice was named after my sister Louise. I honestly thought she was the cleverest thing ever. I was like, wow, how'd you get them to name a slice after you? That's very clever. I have later found out that this, as rumor would have it, the Louise slice was invented for Queen Victoria, so we're talking Queen back in the 1800s, Queen Victoria's daughter, Princess Louise, on the occasion of her marriage. Now apparently, Louise was a little bit of a, with a queen like, I think she's a bit of a troublemaker. She was definitely a woman after her own heart and her own mind. She was a great cook. She loved cooking, which was totally frowned upon when you're a princess. You shouldn't have to cook for yourself, right? But she was also a very passionate feminist. So I kind of think, yeah, maybe that's why the Kiwis have taken this to heart, because don't forget, New Zealand was the first country in the world to give women the right to vote, and that happened towards the end of the 1800s, I believe. So pretty clever stuff. Yes, we have some questions.
Is this recipe in any of your books?
Question is this recipe in any of my books? This recipe is nowhere. You are the very first people to see it. This isn't in a book. I haven't even written it down to be released. I am planning on releasing it though on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen if you want the PDF copy. So this is brand new. This is me going, I am so homesick for New Zealand, because New Zealand is about to celebrate its National Day on Saturday, which is Waitangi Day, and I'm so missing New Zealand at this time of the year, even more so. And every time I get homesick, I think of treats. Treats that I used to have as a kid that weren't that good for me, and now we can have our healthy version. So no, you guys are the first person to see this recipe live. A lot of my recipes you do see me doing on video, they've never been done before, so they are brand new, and this is one of them. Do we have any more questions there, Mr. Mahi? That is all the questions. So celebrating the Louise Slice and Princess Louise, and also celebrating all our wonderful family and friends back home in New Zealand, Aotearoa, New Zealand. Congratulations on getting through another year, New Zealand. Well, we can congratulate the whole world. It's been a tough one, but we can have stuff like this, which is really exciting. So thank you for joining me today. I have a very special class coming up on Saturday in 3 days time. We're going to be making Hokey Pokey ice cream, another Kiwi classic. We're going to be doing that, and I know that recipe is in no books either. I'm giving it to you guys first here live from the kitchen. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the next class. Until then, be well, be safe, and enjoy this. I know you will. Take care, guys. Bye. Oh, see ya.